Imagine a child, just 9 years old, suddenly running out into the night and never coming back. No footprints, no cries for help, no trace of where they went. How does a young child vanish so completely, leaving behind nothing but questions that still haunt us today? The child at the heart of this mystery was just 9 years old, full of life, innocence, and dreams that never had the chance to grow. Friends and family described them as playful, curious, and sometimes a little stubborn in the way kids often are. They loved simple joys, playing outside until the sun dipped low, laughing at silly jokes, and curling up at night with their favorite toy by the bed. To the people who knew them best, this child wasn't just another face in the neighborhood. They were a light, the kind of presence that could fill a room with energy, that could make even adults smile with their endless questions and imagination. At school, teachers said they were bright, eager to learn, and quick to make friends. At home, their family remembers small moments, the sound of their laughter echoing through the halls, the way they hated going to bed early, the excitement in their voice when talking about the future. That's why what happened feels so impossible. Children don't just disappear, especially not children like this one, loved, cared for, and watched over. And yet, on that night, something changed. In a single decision, a single moment of panic or impulse, this child bolted into the darkness. And from there, the trail went cold. It's important to remember this wasn't just a mystery in a headline. This was a real child. Someone's son or daughter, someone's classmate, someone's whole world. Their disappearance wasn't just strange, it was heartbreaking. And it left behind a silence that their family has never been able to fill. It was a night like any other, quiet, ordinary, and unremarkable. The kind of night where families were winding down, houses glowing softly against the dark, and nothing seemed out of place. But in one home, everything was about to change. The child had gone to bed as usual, tucked in and safe. But something stirred in them that night. No one knows exactly what. Some say it could have been a bad dream that jolted them awake. Others wonder if they heard something outside, a sound that pulled their attention, a voice, or maybe even a fear they couldn't explain. What we do know is this. Sometime after midnight, the 9-year-old got up, opened the door, and ran into the night. Neighbors later reported that they thought they saw a small figure darting past, barefoot, moving quickly but silently. A few claimed they heard the faint slap of footsteps on pavement, but by the time anyone reacted, the child was gone, vanished into the darkness. The detail that chills people most is how sudden it was. No note, no sign of struggle, no explanation. Just a door left ajar and a family waking up to the most terrifying realization imaginable. Their child had disappeared into the night without a trace. For the parents, that night is etched into memory like a scar. They woke to silence where laughter should have been, to an empty bed where safety should have been, to a nightmare that never ended. In the space of minutes, an ordinary evening had transformed into something no family ever expects, a living mystery with no clear answers. And from that moment on, nothing in their lives would ever be the same. The moment the family realized the child was missing, panic set in. At first, they searched the house from top to bottom, closets, under the bed, every corner where a 9-year-old might hide. But the house was silent, the bed was empty, and the front door stood slightly open, swinging as if to mock them. That was when the terror became real. They rushed outside, calling the child's name into the night. Their voices cracked with fear as they checked the yard, the street, the neighbors' driveways. Lights flicked on in nearby homes as people woke to the sound of shouting, and soon neighbors joined in, combing the streets with flashlights, scanning every shadow, hoping to spot the small figure running or hiding. But there was nothing. No sound of footsteps, no rustling in the bushes, no reply to the desperate calls. Just the eerie stillness of the night. Within hours, police were called. Officers arrived, spreading out through the neighborhood, knocking on doors, waking anyone who might have seen something. K9 units were brought in, their dogs sniffing for a trail, but even they seemed confused, following faint traces only to lose them suddenly, as if the child's path had ended in thin air. Helicopters circled overhead, sweeping powerful lights across fields and tree lines, but the search revealed nothing. It was as though the darkness had swallowed the child whole. For the family, those first hours were the longest of their lives. Every minute felt like it mattered, and every passing second without answers deepened the dread. Parents clung to hope that any moment the child would reappear, maybe scared, maybe tired, but safe. Yet the night passed, the sun rose, and the bed inside the house was still empty. What began as a frantic neighborhood search had quickly transformed into something much larger, something that would grip the community, confuse investigators, and leave behind a trail of questions that still haven't been answered. As the search widened, investigators began piecing together the few fragments of evidence left behind, and it only made the mystery more unsettling. The first detail that stood out was the door. It hadn't been forced open. It hadn't been unlocked from the outside. It was opened from within, suggesting the child made the choice to leave. But why? A 9-year-old doesn't usually slip out of a safe home in the middle of the night without reason. Some wondered if they had been sleepwalking, acting without awareness, driven only by a dream. But if that was the case, how could they have gotten so far so fast? Then there were the reported sightings. A neighbor swore they saw a small figure rushing past their window around midnight, but when questioned, they admitted it had only been a blur in the dark. Another claimed they heard faint footsteps on the pavement, yet when they stepped outside seconds later, there was nothing. Not a shadow, not a sound. These glimpses gave hope, but they offered no solid answers. The dogs brought in to track the child's scent provided another puzzle. At first, they picked up a faint trail near the edge of the street, but it suddenly stopped as though the child had simply vanished. Searchers scoured the area for signs, footprints, torn clothing, even a scrap of fabric caught on a fence. But there was nothing. Not a single piece of evidence to show where the child went next. Even stranger was the absence of noise. In a quiet neighborhood, you'd expect a running child, barefoot and frightened, to draw attention. But almost no one heard anything. It was as though the night had muffled every sound, wrapping the child in silence as they disappeared. And perhaps the most haunting question of all, what made them run? Was it fear? A voice they thought they heard? A call from the darkness no one else could explain? The absence of answers turned every small clue into a torment, each detail more confusing than the last. Days passed, then weeks, and while the search left behind maps covered in red lines, police reports filled with theories, and families clinging to fading hope, there was still nothing solid. The trail ended as suddenly as it began. The child was gone, and all that remained were questions that no one could answer. When a child vanishes into the night without a trace, people are left with only one thing: theories. And over time, these theories have taken on a life of their own, ranging from the logical to the downright chilling. The first explanation many cling to is that the child simply ran away. Maybe something frightened them, maybe they felt restless, or maybe there was an argument earlier in the day that weighed on their young mind. Kids sometimes make impulsive choices, and slipping out into the night could have been one of them. But this theory quickly loses ground. A 9-year-old, barefoot and alone, wouldn't make it far without leaving some kind of sign. If they had truly run away, wouldn't there be a trail, a sighting, something? Another theory is an abduction. Some believe the child may have stepped outside at just the wrong moment, crossing paths with someone lurking nearby. Perhaps they were coaxed by a familiar voice, or even forced into a vehicle waiting in the shadows. This could explain why the trail ended so abruptly and why the dogs lost the scent. But if that were true, the lack of evidence is baffling. No tire tracks, no witnesses, no one noticing a suspicious figure. And of course, there are the theories that step beyond logic. Some whisper about paranormal forces, tales of children drawn by voices only they could hear, of dark presences lurking just out of sight, of the night itself swallowing them whole. These ideas may sound far-fetched, but for a family left with no answers, even the strangest explanations sometimes feel more believable than the silence. Every theory has cracks. Every possibility leaves behind more questions than answers. Was it a runaway, an abduction, a tragic accident, or something far stranger that defies reason? The truth is, no one knows. And that is what keeps this story alive in whispers and late-night discussions, because the not knowing is sometimes scarier than any theory we can imagine. Years have passed since that night, and the case of the 9-year-old who vanished into the darkness remains frozen in time. Despite the massive search efforts, no definitive evidence has ever surfaced. Not a single confirmed sighting, not a single personal belonging found miles away, not even a clue strong enough to point investigators in one direction or another. It is as though the child stepped off the map and never returned. The police still keep the file open, though over time, leads have grown cold. Occasionally, tips come in. Someone swears they saw a child who looked similar, or a piece of information resurfaces online that makes people wonder. Each time, hope flickers for just a moment, only to fade again when the details fall apart under closer examination. For the family, the pain never really ends. Every birthday, every holiday, every passing year is a reminder of what was lost and of the questions that remain unanswered. Some family members cling to the belief that the child could still be alive somewhere, waiting to be found. Others have reluctantly come to accept that they may never know the truth. The community, too, has never forgotten. The story is retold in whispers, parents reminding their children to be careful, neighbors remembering the night searchlights swept across their homes. The memory lingers not just as a tragedy, but as a warning, a reminder that safety is never absolute, and that sometimes the most unthinkable things can happen without explanation. Today, the case stands as one of those haunting mysteries that refuses to fade away, officially unresolved, officially unanswered, and perhaps destined to remain that way unless one day, by chance, the truth is uncovered. The story of the 9-year-old who ran into the night and was never seen again isn't just a mystery. It's a reminder of how fragile life can be, and how quickly the ordinary can turn into the unexplainable. A child who should have been safe in their own bed suddenly became the center of a disappearance that has haunted a family, a community, and everyone who hears it. What makes this story so unsettling is the silence it leaves behind. No clear answers, no trail to follow, just a lingering question that refuses to go away. How can a child vanish so completely? And that's where I turn the question to you. What do you think really happened that night? Was it an accident? An abduction? Something we can't even begin to explain? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments. I'd love to hear what you believe. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.